Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Pranamahamsa Parivrajakacharya Astodhara Shadashishi Midas Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Jai Shishi Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kun Radha Kun Giri Gaurang Ki Jai Shri Vrindavanam Ki Jai Navadvip Mayapodam Ki Jai Gangamai Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to all the assembled devotees. All glories to all the assembled devotees. All glories to all the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we are reading today from Bhagavad Gita, as it is, by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. I'll just make it a bit readable. That looks a bit better. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It is not a very difficult process, however. One must learn it from an experienced person. Tad vijnanartam sa guru ave bigachet. One must approach a spiritual master, a person who's already in the practice. The mind is always flying to this and that, but one must practice concentrating the mind always on the form of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, or on the sound of his name. The mind is naturally restless, going hither and thither, but it can rest in the sound vibration of Krishna. One must thus meditate on Param Purusham, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the spiritual kingdom, the spiritual sky, and thus attain him. The ways and means for ultimate realization, ultimate attainment, are stated in the Bhagavad Gita, and the doors of this knowledge are opened for everyone. No one is barred. All classes of men can approach Lord Krishna by thinking of him. For hearing and thinking of him are possible for everyone. So let's have a look at what it's saying here. So just recapping this section we've been discussing previously about the importance of thinking of Krishna at the time of leaving the body. And in order to do that, we have to practice thinking of Krishna throughout our lifetime. One who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Arjuna, is sure to reach me. Okay, this is the one. So this is the theme we've been following for quite some time in this introduction to Bhagavad Gita. It's so important that our life is like going to school, like going to university, perhaps. And our final exam is at the point of death. Will we remember Krishna, or will we forget him? And if we remember Krishna, we can go back to Godhead and be with him eternally. It's such an amazing possibility. And it's describing here how to do it. So Prabhupada's encouraging us here to say that it's not a very difficult process. However, one must learn it from an experienced person. You know, this is like anything in life. If we want to be successful, we need to get guidance. As Devanamrita Swami likes to say, Krishna consciousness is a guidance culture. It's not something that we just can figure out on our own. Krishna consciousness is revealed knowledge. It's not knowledge that we can understand by our own speculation. And at every point, it's important to consult Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, so we know what is the right thing to do. It says here the mind is always flying to this and that, but one must practice concentrating the mind always on the form of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna or the sound of his name. So this is certainly something that we can do. By chanting all the time, we are associating with Krishna in his form of sound. This way. And association is the principle. It's mentioning here that we should approach a person who's already in the practice. And if we want to become expert in anything, the best way to do it is to associate with those who are already expert. And just by their association, we'll be able to imbibe the right mentality and the right practices. Things which we pick up through culture not just through books. Of course, reading the books is also association. I reflect back for myself. I feel so blessed that I had the opportunity to live in a temple and to be a brahmachari and associate with full-time devotees, so to speak. We traveled in the Sankirtan van, a very focused environment. We would wake up, we would chant, we would prepare breakfast, we would have classes, we'd read the books, and then we'd go out and preach. And sometimes we would do programs in people's homes and share Krishna consciousness with others, take rest early, and rinse and repeat. It was a blissful and simple life. Also in the temple, Prabhupada's given us a program. We don't need to speculate about it. We can just follow it. And now living in a home with wife and children, it's definitely more difficult because we don't have that stream or that current of Krishna consciousness. When we live in the temple, especially a temple which is contained in one building, like in the Christchurch temple, we lived in the brahmachari ashram there. It was upstairs above the temple room, and as soon as Mangalarti started, you could hear it from everywhere in the house. So if we were sleeping in the brahmachari ashram, we could hear the Mangalarti going on. And so this immediately reminds us, I should be awake. I should be there. I'm missing out. A little different if you live on a farm where you have your own house and you don't really hear what's going on in the temple. But still, just being in that environment, naturally, wherever you look, you're seeing devotees. You're seeing devotees doing devotional service. And it creates a current by which we become inspired to practice Krishna consciousness. Of course, it still takes endeavor. Just by living in a temple is not sufficient, but it certainly helps. Living in a temple, being in a Sankirtan van. But just my personal feelings, I really appreciated that experience because when you day after day keep repeating the spiritual process and you're serving the feasts and you're serving the prasadam and eating together, it creates a wonderful atmosphere of a shared community, an atmosphere of where you learn the culture. And I've noticed, just some basic things that, if you're in the temple and you do something a bit wrong, a devotee will come up to you and say, Prabhu, did you know that? That thing that you just did, actually, that's not the way we do it. We should do it like this. And so just many, many little incidents like this train us up on the proper way to behave. And we also get to observe the way that others are doing things. Very simple things. Like devotees often like to say that Prabhupada taught us the most basic things, like even how to go to the toilet. Not just using a bit of paper and smearing it around, but actually having a full bath and using soap every time, we pass stool, for example. And also through being a brahmachari and living in the temple, I picked up things that I think that many devotees may not even know. These are material things, but very helpful for our health and spiritual life. Like when going to the toilet, squatting instead of just sitting on the toilet. Just learning the proper procedures for doing things. Just also the mood of living together and serving each other, prasadam. This also helps to create the service mentality. When we live in our own home, there can tend to be a spirit of, it's me and my family. It may be more selfish or extended selfishness. But living in the association of devotees is wonderful. So here I am reminiscing and lamenting to have lost that experience, but we can recreate it. in the current times with all kinds of crazy things happening in society, with the threat of a cyber pandemic. If you haven't heard about that, it's been predicted by the World Economic Forum that there's going to be like a computer virus that is a threat to all the computers in the world, and that the response will be to disconnect the internet completely, and in some places to completely disconnect the power supply even. So you can imagine if this happens, as Klaus Schwab, the leader of the World Economic Forum, says, this will make the COVID crisis seem like nothing. Small time. So this is the some of the dangers in our society, and Prabhupada encouraged us to live in a community, in the country, so that we can avoid some of these challenges that the material civilization offers. Prabhupada said that your motor car civilization will be finished within 50 years, which means now. So it's definitely something to be looking into, and it's such a wonderful experience. Even if we haven't had the experience of living in a temple full time, just going on festivals where you camp out and have prasadam together and have Mangalarti and class together, it's such an amazing experience, very powerful. And especially if we have the opportunity to associate with those who are, as it says here, already in the practice, those who are more advanced than ourselves. In Vaishnava etiquette, there's three levels of devotees in terms of association. Those who are more advanced than us, we should serve them and learn from them with great respect. Those who are on a kind of equal level, we should make friendship with them, collegiality. We can share our struggles that we are going through together and support each other. And then we should show mercy to those who are less advanced than ourselves. Teach them, encourage them, provide a good example for them. And then they in turn will offer service, show respect, and so on. And this is the way the process continues. Following the three loving exchanges, giving and receiving gifts, giving and receiving prasadam, and revealing our mind and inquiring confidentially. So depending on which category of person we're talking to, that may show itself in a different way. If we're going through great challenges, we generally won't be confiding that in our juniors because it may put doubt in their minds and they may not be in a position to give good advice. But certainly we would approach our seniors about these things, and also our peers that, hey, I'm having this trouble. Have you ever had this problem? What did you do? Then approach the seniors, Guru Maharaj or, my dear senior devotee, what should I do in this situation? So again, the importance of this association. This will help us to stay fixed in Krishna consciousness and help us to stay fixed in this chanting. Help us to keep the form of Krishna in our mind and keep the sound of his name in our ears. And this is what this section is talking about. In order to control the mind, we have to put ourselves in a situation that helps us to think of Krishna and helps to hear his name. So if we live in a temple, we have deities to look at, Bhagavatam classes to hear, the chanting of the holy name is always going on. And in our home, we can recreate this. If we have a picture, we have deities that we worship, regular hearing from, we can hear recordings of classes and we can read Prabhupada's books directly or hear devotees reading the books. This is a good use of technology. And then just chanting whenever we can. Starting with very focused, concentrated sadhana, And then developing the practice of chanting all the time whenever we have a moment. I've explained previously that Prabhupada was talking to someone to say that actually you keep your beads with you all the time. Whenever you get some chance, you keep chanting. So we try to do our 16 rounds, concentrated in the morning, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't chant more. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't chant when we have the chance. We keep our bead bag with us, as Prabhupada did. He would go on morning walks, he would talk, and then he would focus on his chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And a devotee or someone asked Prabhupada, well, how do you concentrate when you do that? And Prabhupada said, it takes practice. Because we're not supposed to only think of Krishna during japa time in the morning. We're supposed to think of Krishna all the time, as it's mentioned here, through the sound of his name. And this will prevent our restless mind from going here and there. Instead of going here and there, or hither and thither, it can rest in the sound vibration of Krishna. And this will allow us to keep our mind on Krishna and be able to go to the spiritual kingdom and be with Krishna eternally. So then, it's described here that this process I'm describing, anyone can follow. Requires no qualification. You don't need a sacred thread. Even to be initiated is not required to follow this process. Although, of course, when we talk about this principle at the beginning, tad vijnanam saguru avabhigachet, it says you must approach a spiritual master. So that is required, but you don't have to wait to have a spiritual master to be initiated to follow this practice. You can begin immediately. And then while you're practicing, look, who can I take guidance from? Who can become my guru? Who can help me go back to Godhead? But it's open for anyone. All classes of men can approach Lord Krishna by thinking of him, because thinking and hearing are possible for everyone. So we'll just keep this very short and simple today. We've just been through the Easter period, so we can reflect on a great devotee, Lord Jesus Christ, and he was willing to sacrifice his whole life, to help people learn to love God. So other great souls have done such great sacrifices to spread this Christian consciousness movement. So let us take advantage of these opportunities to hear about Krishna and remember Krishna out of gratitude for these great souls. And let us also help to spread this message to others and continue the mission of great souls like Lord Jesus Christ and Srila Prabhupada. So we'll end here today. Thank you for your attention. If there are any questions, please put them in the comments. I'll check them from time to time and respond. Grantra Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.